Our very freedom came under attack.
Represent! American Pleasure Club. Fucking Bliss. American Pleasure Club, formerly known as Teen Suicide before a name change and by other projects if you followed the dude, is a band led by singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Sam Ray. They've had a reasonably large impact on the bedroom pop and lo-fi indie rock scene with the past few years with their blend of punk rock, Midwest emo, ambient, electronic, some hip-hop here and there, indie rock again. I hear some mountain goats in some of the songs, especially like the Casio keyboard ones. All in all, to you guys right now, if I describe this band with just those terms, it probably sounds like a mess to you. To be fair, it is. They've been sampled numerous times as well by other artists, perhaps most notably by XXXTentacion, who was probably a big fan of Sam Ray's work, having gone so far to include the piano melody in the song Know the Moon, in his own song Teeth, which, hey, I won't shy away from saying I do actually kind of like that song, as well as other Tentacion tracks here and there, but I digress. This is not about Tentacion, this is about APC. In their teen suicide years, they made what some people could call calming sad boy music, and for others it could be loud, noisy garage indie punk that doesn't take itself seriously, and for others it's just too broad to really put a tag onto. It's just music, man. And with this album, it's really no exception that it's a mess in the eye of the beholder, no matter which beholder it is. For most who watch this video, you're probably already familiar with their work, and for those who aren't, I do recommend you check them out, preferably on either the albums. For those of you who are watching this video, you're probably already familiar with their work, and for those who aren't, I do recommend you check them out. Preferably on either the albums Waste Yourself or Bad Vibes Forever, but no matter what you choose, it's not going to prepare you for this album. Okay, let me explain. Throughout the Teen Suicide discography, while they were under that name, album to album, single, EP, whatever, you'll hear inconsistent production quality and genre hops that make it, let's say, rather difficult to put one tag onto. And before you complain that music shouldn't have genres to separate it, and that this album is proof of that futile exercise, just don't. Stop. You need to describe an album somehow if you're introducing it to people, and the best I can give this album is that it's all of Sam Ray's influences mixed with already present musical experience from recording under the Teen Suicide, Ricky Eat Acid, and other project labels. Everything he's done to this point has been incorporated in some form or another on this album. Fucking Bliss. Ambient themes and a cavernous sound are kind of the main flavor of this album, but you also get noise and drone, you get acoustic segments, you even get something close to what some would call metal, which, to come to think of it, Sam has somewhat prepared for with a single released last November titled If It's Your Final Wish, I'll Make It Happen. Trap influences are also a big part of the mix here. The amount of ideas and genres blending together on this album make a general sound unfitting of what Teen Suicide got their cult popularity from, and yet the creativity behind it is still parallel to what made Teen Suicide, whenever not good, at least enjoyable. Does it make a mess? Of course it does, and the production is the first thing I'll call attention to. I mean, Sam's not been one to shy away from using uneven and inconsistent production, and this results in many moments where you'll need to adjust your volume knob or slider, which, as a person who loves the advent of pressing play and putting away, it really grinds my gears after a while. It's also a mess in that you never really know what comes next on this album, and for some that's good, for some that's bad, but I don't mean in like a bio-noise generator or Zavleg or Mike Patton sense of utterly random stuff suddenly happening. I mean in terms of just what the next song's going to contain in terms of structure. It's an absolute shit show, and I like it for that. To culminate this sort of experience as somewhat of an outsider artist with multiple projects and release something so abstract can easily lead to a very unenjoyable time for everybody. And splitting off from a usual sound so drastically can also have the same effect. But despite my gripes with mixing with an assumed lack of a hard limiter, I feel like this is kind of where American Pleasure Club, or at least Sam Ray as a person, was hoping to take this project, because now that I hear this, I also hear the subtle hints of where this album was taking shape in prior APC and Teen Suicide releases. Unlike said prior albums, there's no real standout song, as this is one of those albums that's more meant to be played as a full listen than with individual tracks, but a lack of standout in this case doesn't mean an album full of filler, or an uninteresting album, because there's definitely something interesting going on. It's just present on all these songs to where you can pick any one thing about the song and come up with the same conclusion of, wow, this is different. I guess if I had to review this conventionally, because it's far from a conventional album in the first place, I may as well. Production, I've already gone over that. It kinda sucks, but that's the point and intention. It's not meant to be squeaky clean. Whatever, it's just my personal taste. The songwriting is abstract and the lyrics are half abstract, half blunt in the usual style of this project and other bedroom pop artists. You get the usual poetic writing about drug abuse, troubled relationships, and apathetic celebration of a dull gray world. How's that for a post-rock album title? You know, stuff that Billie Eilish fans are just now discovering for the first time. There's only really one lyric standing out to me, taking place on the first song. I need your come in my life. I love you like heaven. Your taste sets me on fire. In love with the miserable vision. Sam's vocal work is nothing really new either if you're used to the recent American Pleasure Club releases. It goes more into the auto-tune as an instrument mindset that Kanye and T-Pain have used in years past. But for a good part of this album, you will barely hear the lyrics of a song. I don't know if it was intentional as a sort of atmospheric element in the production, but Sam is mixed quite low on many of these tracks, with the rest featuring heavy reverb that makes individual words indiscernible at best, which reminds me of Absent Parents, aka No Aska, an artist who, come to think of it, had a very similar sound to this album before this album came out. To summarize fucking Bliss in just a minute is hard, but basically American Pleasure Club goes further into experimental territory than they ever really have within the context of their discography prior. And they pull it off with a very interesting, if flawed, album. It's clear that a lot of thought went into this project, and it won't be the end anytime soon, and for that, I gotta hand it to everybody involved for taking the dare and just making something different, making something out there. However, me personally, I would have preferred a bit more polish, maybe equalization and normalization so I don't have to keep turning my fucking knob, and maybe some more incorporation of the old sound that drew people into this group in the first place, because this album lacks a lot of the edge that the band showed before, and again, my personal taste here, it felt a bit empty without it. It's a good listen if you're into underground indie music, or really any of the sources of influence I described earlier in this video, but go into it with caution. I give this, and I really